This is Lisalee and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to do a reading. We're going to let spirit dictate. So I'm going to shuffle. I'll put the title, it'll tell us. But I just wanted to jump in and see where I have like this urge to do this reading, but I don't know what it is yet. So we're going to find out together. Okay, so let's jump right in. I hope I'm mostly in the frame. If it's a little out, I'm going to be holding the cards up so we can see them as I go along. So let's start with forgiveness, the Three of Swords, and the Lover's card. Three of Swords this is heartbreak right here, and it's not just heartbreak. In this particular Three of Swords, what I am seeing is this shadow over here is like this angry inner voice, this inner self. And this storm back here is like the, almost like what's being projected out is sort of coming back. So how do I say this, Spirit? It's almost like this is the inner voice that's angry. And then this is how it sort of manifests, like where it, what is the word? Fulfilling prophecy, self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, so what Spirit is saying is like, so this is this person who's, like the angry inner voice. These are the swords here. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy that comes from this angry inner voice. And here is, we're seeing like a winged angel cutting off her wings because it hurts too much to think about like what it would mean to fly with these two swords in her heart. And I'm looking at these eyes on the top of her head, and it's almost like she can see so much of what she is and who she is, but her ears are trained to this really negative, berating inner voice and the threats that might be with like around her. And it's actually resulting in her agreeing to the extent that she's cutting off her own wings. And with the Lover's card, this card is about what it means to make a decision between the comfort zone and leaving the comfort zone, home and like leaving home, or like a decision between a partner that doesn't have you, like where the growth has stopped, and a partner that has there's a promise of growth. So like there's always this, it could be a choice between people, but generally it's a choice to level up or stay where you are. And so when I see that with the forgiveness card, I have to say, I think this is about like what it means to forgive the self. So let's look at that for a second. I see this character as like, oh, let me look for a minute, because something interesting is coming through. I see this person as actually like throwing something out. And that's an interesting thing, because at first I wanted to kind of see like a reaching that was like but then like the channel was very clear, like this is somebody who's throwing something out. And so sometimes when we get hurt really bad, what we do, we don't actually internalize it. Occasionally, and whoever this is resonating with, there's a way in which you can throw it out. That hurt, I'm just gonna like toss it into the atmosphere, like I'm never gonna see it again, it doesn't matter, like throw it out, throw it out, throw it out, throw it out. But you're actually hollowing out, hollowing out, hollowing out, hollowing out, and then you can feel very empty, because everything that you needed from those lessons where you just tossed it away because it was uncomfortable, or it was something that like didn't adhere to what you wanted to see, like the way in which you wanted to be perceived. Spirit's saying like there's so much value in the conflict that you can like throw away and walk away from. And it's like, and it catches up. And I'm being shown like there's this feeling where like, this is a character who is in the dark even about who they are, and in the dark about like how bright the world can get, because there has been this pattern of something doesn't feel right, or there's a rejection, or there's an annoying, conversation, and you throw it out and you never find out what that conflict is meant to teach you. And so life just becomes about emptying out, emptying out, emptying out, and then feeling really empty. So this is why forgiveness is like It's an interesting concept because the way I always think about it is it's a technology of release. And in this case, it's almost saying the opposite. In this case, it's saying like forgiveness can be sometimes a need for integration, digestion, and then release. It's not always supposed to just happen immediately. Like, we're supposed to learn from the things that we often just toss out. So that's powerful, what's coming through. And with Solitude, the Hanged Man, and the Ace of Cups, just move this over. We can get so comfortable, you know, when there's a habit of avoiding conflict to a degree that it's almost like a maze that you get yourself lost in, and then finding your way like through the maze becomes the whole picture of Earth, you know, and never what it actually is. And so, you know, around this idea of like what it means to forgive when it actually entails looking at it, learning from it, like, and feeling like it has reached some resolution. It doesn't necessarily have to be relational. That's when like the forgiveness can take place and actually be the kind of release that doesn't just leave you emptying, wandering, and like going in circles and labyrinths. This is taking a little bit of a dark turn, but we're taking the dark turn. It's all good. So with Solitude here and the Hanged Man and the Ace of Cups, you know, what I'm hearing is, you know, there's a way to be really comfortable in stuck. You know, because you can be stuck, and the only way out is you know, you have to kind of fight your way out. We can get ourselves into positions where the only way out is to fight your way out. But it can get really comfortable to be in stuck, being like, well, I'm stuck, and this is where it is, and you know, I've made peace with it, and I have this whole different perspective on the world, and there's an isolation here, you know, because we're looking at solitude. And so there's this way in which the solitude of, you know, I have such a different perspective, and I'm stuck, and I have to fight to get out of this position, and I don't have the fight in me. It can seem really comfortable. And that solitude after a while, let me get this card, because I think these cards mostly go together. There's stillness and solitude. There's solitude can be really predictable, and you can look at the same scene over and over and over and over again forever. You really can. There's that much richness in pretty much everything. But in that solitude, you're only really able to like interact and learn lessons in a way that doesn't involve actually, you know, confronting some of what this like throwing away conflict and throwing away opportunities with the burning bridges is really what I'm feeling. Spirit is saying like this is the most comfortable, like boiling in a pot, like frog. Like I'm seeing that, like, you know, that adage of like the frog is in the pot and it slowly boils and it doesn't know that it's boiling until it's too hot. And so like this is really what I'm getting from, you know, what this spirit is saying is like this is really where we can get comfortably stuck in the warm water, but that shit is going to get hot. And when it does, you're going to have some kind of a reserve of self-love. And so that's kind of where we come back to this, like this voice over here that is like condemning and creating a decision based on the pain and not looking at the conflict. I don't want it, I'm throwing it out. You know, this is an internal voice. This is the storm. This is the hypervigilance in kind of a way. And not taking the time to pull these swords out results in her cutting her wings off. And so that's this preoccupation. And it's actually a preoccupation with like how to respond to pain with pain. And, you know, in terms of this decision of like how to get out of your comfort zone, you know, there's work in it, in terms of you have to look at the stuff that you know, like I want this thing that is beyond my comfort zone. Well, what's keeping me on my comfort zone? What is keeping me there? I'm super comfortable looking at the same scene over and over again because it doesn't challenge me to pull these swords out of my heart. And that's when Spirit is saying, so like when you get to a place where you're the frog in that boiling water and it just gets too hot, and that's the, you know, and it's too hot, right? when that water starts to boil and you need to jump out, and basically in some way you're going to have that pressure release, you're going to need some self-love in your storehouses. And so that is why forgiveness and like the process, and then we'll be talking about what the process is so important, because you need this self-love, because at a certain point your soul wants to expand and something's got to give, and that's opportunity usually comes in around that time, but you need a reserve of self-love in order to make that leap. And so let's talk about opportunity. So what we're going to ask Spirit, like, you know, as we move through this, is we're going to talk a little bit about like the technology of forgiveness, and then we're going to come back to building up self-love in this period of solitude, and what that process might, like, what would aid. Because, you know, what you know, Spirit is saying is like, what we're not going to do is like bring you through this journey, and, you know, it's just like, here's the adages, like, we really want to talk about solving these problems with opportunity here. And the Three of Wands and the Moon. I like this. So opportunity can come in some very mysterious ways. That's why I love opportunity and the Moon card together here so much, because there's the Moon, and the Moon card symbolizes like, this is an illusion. Is it real? Is that a shadow? Is that a threat? Is that a magical, like, what am I looking at? Like, it's being in, like, walking through the forest in the night and trying to figure out like where the path is by looking up and trying to figure the tree line splits where, and having to actually not like look at your feet and the path in front of you, but literally find it by looking up. And so there's this way in which sometimes opportunity is not going to be where we're looking for it. So it, like, you know, this is such a powerful range of imagery that I'm getting related to like walking through the woods and having to look, because it's pitch dark, having to look up to the sky to see where the tree line parts, to understand where that path is, and then being on that path from that perspective. Sometimes opportunity is looking away from where you think you're going to find it, which is in front of you, or like in the direction that you're trying to go with your map. Sometimes it means when you find yourself lost and you can't figure out a way and it's dark, Spirit is like, that is the moment when you look up. Because opportunity is, if it's not where you can find it, you've got to move your head. Or like, and that might mean like, well, where's my perspective completely fucked right now? And how can I find a direction that isn't the perspective that's going to kill me, or that's going to like sabotage my life on a repeating cycle? So the Moon, you know, and an opportunity here is really about, sometimes when we're lost and we can't really tell, like, is this an opportunity or is this not? Is this right? Is this wrong? You know, or like there's a spiral. There's almost a panic in this feeling with not knowing like the direction, or not really understanding like where your opportunities are going to come in and what's going to happen and how are you going to maintain until that happens. Spirit is saying sometimes when you're in that, you look up, or, you know, you look up. And that's even like a way of looking, and that's even kind of speaking to like spirituality and the stars and like the help of like all that we're a part of, in the way of look up, what does the universe have to show you in the way of your path? It's not where you think it is, because you can't see it there. And that's why I love the Three of Wands right here, because what that is saying is you have, you know, what is meant for you is going to find you. It's going to find you and it's going to be there. What is meant for you will always show up. So there's a need to have faith in, oh, this is interesting. I'm being shown to like make a little circle right there. So, all right, so this is almost like a story that's coming through, you know, like with this like broken heart, and, you know, not fully understanding appreciating the process of forgiveness, and the technology of forgiveness means like taking in meaning from an experience or a conflict that didn't sit right, so that you can actually like navigate with it and gain a strength around maturity that like lends to like building and not accepting a space of solitude. Because the predictability is essential when you feel like there's not anything filling you, you know, when you're needing external stuff to fill you up. And so what I'm being shown with this heartbreak is like, yes, nothing that is meant for you what is meant for you will show up. But if you're like, if this is the death spiral, or the limiting beliefs cycle that you pay homage to in cutting off your wings to, like, you know, like, this is, I'm feeling like angry at the past. Like, I would rather sit here and be completely fucked for the rest of my life than take out these swords that somebody else should be taking out because somebody put them in there, and I shouldn't have to do this by myself, and I shouldn't have to do this myself. There's such an anger in it. And so, you know, what Spirit is saying is, it's not that you'll miss the opportunity, but the opportunity might be right in front of you, and you're looking and you're doing this because this is the stuck. And this stuck leads to the solitude, and that solitude can get really dangerous and make you really small unless you have a reserve of self-love to be able to meet this opportunity with. Because you might not see it, like, you know, you might have to look up through the tree line and find that path, like, spiritually, and that's going to be your connection to your self-love, is your connection to the divine. And so Spirit's saying, like, it's really important to, like, embrace. Not that you're always going to know the opportunity, not that the opportunity is going to be the one that you're hoping for, but to actually put some faith in, you know, like, in order to lift your head out of, this is a painful spot. Okay, so this is too painful. Where's the faith? Like, finding faith is looking up at tree line above. I don't know what faith is. Fine. No one does. Try to find the path outside of your, like, view, your scope of view. And this reserve of self-love actually is really interesting, because the opportunity will come at you. If you're stuck in the spiral of the pain, you're just going to have the opportunity in front of you, and this is how you're going to receive it. But if you have this storehouse of self-love, and here's how you get it. You get this storehouse of self-love by, and this is, people talk about the manifesting is a good way of putting it. You get this storehouse of self-love by knowing what you love. What, like, and this is spending time with yourself and the things that you love. Like, what are you interested in? I have no idea, because what, you've been working, doing something else, or you know, mine's been sort of like stuck on like one particular thing you want, and you're neglecting all the other stuff. That's a lot of the self-emptying over here. So, like, actually knowing yourself and knowing what feeds your spirit and feeds your soul and keeps you preoccupied in a way that doesn't feel like decay. That's really important. That's like, it seems like a little, you know, but that's what's coming through. So what it is to, like, you know, this Ace of Cups, this is like, within you, there is enough. There's always a fountain of love that is sustaining. There's always a part of you that's regenerative, related to, like, producing love. It's like it's at the seat of the soul, and, you know, a lot of people connect to it, and it's like that source energy that comes in and fills you. And so it's, like, important to find these holy spaces that wouldn't necessarily register as holiness, like, anything that you love making. If you love making crafts, if you love making music, if you love, you know, writing poetry, if you love writing anything, if you love creating a garden, whatever that ends up being, that's like prayer, that's a holiness, that brings you into sacred space. That's going to help you tap into what it means, like, what you are and what you love. And it's also going to tap into, like, that regenerative source of love, because you're giving yourself what you need, really. And so the thing about opportunities is, you know, I always say to people, you know, you run at the things that you love, and you'll bump into the people that you love that you're supposed to bump into. If you run at people around the things that you love, you are going to miss the target 1,000. Like, you're just going to be within shot of the it's just going to be. So Spirit is saying, like, by knowing what you love and the things that you love, and devoting yourself to that, like, cultivating that feeling of, I love the way I feel when I'm doing this, and so I'm going to do it again and again and again, will also, like, align you with this opportunity as it comes in. And that's that storehouse of love that is going to push you out of solitude and that stuck place and into a position of being able to be receptive and embrace what is coming towards you in the way of opportunity that's meant for you. You know, this is the Three of Wands. Like, this is your good karma coming back. This is whatever you put out there. This is it returning in the form that is meant to be, like, your profit. And so this puts you in a position where you can embrace that. So, you know, with simplicity and the star, I love this. With simplicity and the star, we're looking at dream big, dream really, really, really big, because your soul's purpose isn't little. And what you know, and like the seed that is planted as like your greatest desire, something that you find by cultivating over, you know, cultivating the things that you love, dream really, really, really big with that, because you're the only one in competition with yourself. What you can create, only you can create. You're not competing with anybody else. Nobody can create what you can create. You're competing with yourself. That's all you're ever doing. So Spirit is saying, like, when you know what you love and you know what you want to do, like, understand that you can dream as big as you possibly can, because you're not going to be comparing yourself. You're not going to have a mindset of like these impediments related to what other people are doing, how they're doing and whatnot. Like, for you, it's about dream big, and you're only competing with yourself. Do I love this? I love this. How can you know, when you love something, you want to keep making it better because you enjoy the process and the outcome, and it reinforces itself. And so the interesting thing about what it means to dream big and have that big dream actualized is that it's not in any grandiosity, and it's not in the feeling that it gives you to think of what it means to be there necessarily. I mean, that's a part of the fuel that gets you there, but it's a one step at a time. And you see the way that this feather is floating down. You know, it's just like, there's no resistance, but of course the wind is going to move it. And if it's rigid, it's going to fall. But if it's malleable and there's an understanding, like, I'm dreaming big, but then I am surrendering the outcome and just allowing and allowing for like doing the thing that you love, and there not being resistance, and then letting it move, letting it change, and not having a rigidity about it, because Spirit is saying, like, that's exactly how you get to that which you're dreaming of that is big, one step at a time. And that step should not be one of massive resistance, because if there's massive resistance in whatever is being created of this like love of the doing, then you have to ask yourself, like, is this making this a rigid thing that's going to just fall? Because it does need to be able to, you do need to be able to move and co-create with Spirit, because that's what you're tapping into when you do the things that you love that give you that like regenerative love within. This is beautiful. And so, you know, bottom of the deck energies, we have taking risks and the Judgment card. You know, the Judgment card is kind of like, traditional deck is like a judgment day, but it's also like there's a decision that's coming back around. You know, like we have these like cycles in life where we have these pivotal like crossroads sort of decisions, and there's a decision that's coming back around. You made this decision once before and it took you down a road where now it's coming back again, because it was like, it's not all finished. You know, this lesson, this idea, like what it means to forgive, you know, what it means to be in a receptive place for opportunity, what it means to like understand that solitude is a place, but you have to be doing a storehouse of love situation for when the opportunity comes in, because you're going to need to want it more than you want things staying the same. And with this Judgment card, there's something coming back around that's saying, you know, you're going to have to want this more than you want your comfort zone. And do you have that storehouse of love there so that you can meet this? Because it's going to come. And it does require a level of taking risks. But let's take a look at this taking, and there's release here underneath. So I just want to point out that, like, you know, this feather is going to have a really hard time floating with like the, you know, like the ebb and the flow of like the creative cycle, and you know what it is to be doing the thing you love, and like what, you know, there's a relationship to whatever you're creating. There has to be a willingness to like low stakes and release, you know, low stakes and release, and not hold on to a bunch of you know, what I'm hearing is you can't force the sun to shine all the time. You do have to allow the fall to like bring the leaves down so that you can see the shape of things and where it's changed and where you might need to like allow your concept of things to change with the change, so that you're on the same page with like what it is to co-create with spirit. You know, otherwise you're gonna get bored with what you're doing. You know, like I like to, if you like love doing like, you know, creating art, and you love to make like comics, and then you get a job drawing the same character over and over and over and over and over and over again, it takes the love right out of it. And so there's this way in which, like, if you find yourself like in this almost antagonistic relationship with the things you're creating, because you're like, I want that high. Why is the sun not always shining on this process? It's because you do have, like, what it means to float and not have such a resistance is to let there be seasons in your creative process. You know, and like that creative process can be like something you're making or the life that you want to create for yourself. So release is a really important part of it. But we want to look at the bottom of the deck energy, and we want to look at this hawk. You know, this hawk is taking risks, but it's gliding. It's not really relying on just itself. Like, it understands that it's taking a leap into the air, it is flying, but it's not like, if you think about it in terms of like, this hawk has to trust that it can stop flapping its wings long enough for the air to let it glide and rest on. And so here's where we have burnout, when we associate burnout and taking risks. You know, taking risks, you know, there's a way in which you can take risks that doesn't have to feel the most high stakes. You know, there can be a simplicity to it. But part of the equation, half of the equation of what it means to take risks and do things that are changes, is knowing that, like, you're not going to have to do it on your own. You do not have to flap your wings all the way from, you know, wherever this hawk is to where it needs to go in across the world, right? This is a hawk that says, you know, the distance I'm aiming at, I will get there because I can trust that half of the time, like, spirit will be, like, I'll be coasting on the wind. And half of the time I'll be able to rest through this process. I can give whatever I'm doing seasons, so that the taking a risk doesn't have to be where, like, I know the answer to the outcome now. It can be in the simplicity of learning what you love and knowing that that opportunity is going to come. And when you have to take that risk to take that opportunity, not having to think about, I'm going to have to make it all the way there with just my strength, but to understand it that, no, I'm co-creating with spirit, and I have to just be able to know that, like, when I'm tired, the wind will be there and I can coast and I can rest. So, you know, this decision that's coming back around, you know, if it feels daunting to you, what spirit is basically saying is, think about it less in terms of like what life has done. This is what life has done, and this is what life is, and this is the concept of the past, and this is how it's always been, and this is, you know, throwing away this, you know, instead, like, there is what it is to forgive, and we're going to come back over because that's important. What it is to forgive here is to digest and just, like, allow yourself to sit with whatever the conflict, whatever the problem, whatever the weird thing in your head where you're not sure why you know, can't get it out of your mind. And that doesn't mean the other person has a role to play in that. It just means you're going to think it through, and you're going to figure out a way to make sense of it, so that the swords can come out, so that you can step out of the storm of both that internal conflict and that external, you know, reinforcing, because you're like, you know, when you have this voice going, you're looking for it, you're going to find it, confirmation bias. And so, you know, when we talk about what forgiveness is actually, when people say you have to forgive, it's not about anybody else. It means you have to painfully remove these swords, let it heal. That healing, you've got scars where there was once skin, and the scars are tougher than the skin. And there's a knowledge, and there's an ingest, like, that you've ingested and you've processed, and you've been able to move through whatever the heartbreak is. That doesn't mean that trauma, you know, we're not, this is talking about heartbreak, you know, trauma, really deep trauma. It's a little bit of a different process, but essentially, you know, you have to forgive and stop being angry and enraged and wanting justice long enough to take the swords out. And that means with the pain and you, and not looking at the injustice and who did it and why it was wrong. And so, this, like, you know, the act of forgiveness, like, there's, you know, there's a technology to it, and is it a technology of release? But but there's a level of work that says, like, I'm going to stop thinking about the shit that I'm angry about and the stuff that hurt me and why and everything. And I'm just going to take this time. I'm going to process this pain. I'm going to, like, you know, I'm going to have this sacred space with what I'm creating, where I'm communing with like my inner guidance and working through and letting go. And like, you know, you've let go and it doesn't hurt anymore and you feel strong around that area. That's like, the scar is stronger than the original skin. So, you know, Spirit's advice around this is there may be a mountain to climb. When it comes to self-actualizing, you know, having our dreams, like, you know, dreaming really, really, really big is actually one step at a time. But but we're not discounting that one step at a time can be a pain in the neck when you're climbing a mountain. But the focus should be within during this climb. And this comes back to where we started in terms of like, when you don't see your path forward, look up. It's the path. The tree line breaks, that's the path. Even if it's pitch dark around you, you know that that's the path. And so Spirit says, like, you know, it's one step at a time. But your guidance is within. You know, it's a knowledge of a path that you get from looking where you don't think you're going to find what you have coming to you and what's meant for you. And that's a faith thing. That's letting Spirit like let you glide half the time. You're not, you know, and that's also like, you know, this is the fuel that makes each one of these steps and makes the solutions to the problems that arise along the way possible to cope with, because you want it enough, you know, and that's feeding this thing that you love. Now, with Innocence, Poet, and Eccentric, withholding judgment is like, and this is just coming through in a very interesting way. Like, you know, what does it mean to keep innocence, and why is innocence important? Innocence is important because it's a place where we allow ourselves to maintain curiosity, wonder, and like be comfortably in the realm of I don't know, not needing to know. And it's in that space where we're receptive and we're in our feminine energy, and we need to be in that receptive feminine energy, or else we are going to be constipated of mind, body, and soul. So we need that balance. And so, you know, that innocence is related to that. And the way that we stay innocent often means that we're not trying to judge every single thing. We withhold judgment. You know, look at a situation. Does this have anything to do with me? Then I don't need to judge it. Is this related to something where I have to make a decision, or like I need to like understand what I'm looking at and have a judgment one way or another? Then I don't need to judge it. Like, withholding judgment gives you the space to breathe a little bit into like an innocence of I don't know, which goes to wonder, which goes to and the receiving space that is allowing your imagination to wander. And that's such a big part of like what it is to even figure out what you love so much in the way of like what you're creating of your life, or what you're just creating. The other thing is to understand that if you can't let yourself color outside of the lines, you're always going to be living in somebody else's picture. You know, think of yourself as like a portrait, and if someone puts a, you know, those little coloring books, and somebody makes a portrait in the coloring book, and you're not allowed to color out of the lines of what somebody else made you. That's your portrait. Somebody else made it. You're not allowed to color outside of the lines. That's not you. So, you know, Spirit is basically saying, if you can't color outside of the lines of what you've been told who you are, or what you think you should be, or how you think you should be perceived, then it's time to go, it's time to go for a little adventure. It's time to like step out of that comfort zone and actually like explore. When you don't know what it is that you love enough to love it enough, to let it be that regenerative source of love within you, Spirit is saying like that's when you explore outside of your comfort zone, and who the heck knows what you're going to find. But with innocence and openness, you're able to like come into the space of the poet. And the poet is somebody who understands that the meaning isn't always in the words. It's what the words sort of like don't say, where there's so much that's said. And in that space, there are infinite possibilities, and there's nothing that is big enough to like shut you down related to whatever this dream is. It's just the poet is able to float back and forth, knowing that the empty spaces, the wind beneath these wings, will carry whatever it is where it's needing to go. And that's where faith comes in. And And that concludes this reading. So this is a great, I'm gonna think what's the topic, but what is the topic? Well, we'll figure it out. I'm gonna put it on, well, you'll see it before I do. So, well, you'll see it after I put it up there. All right, this was good, and I hope that that was helpful, and thank you for being here. If you like what you're seeing, like, subscribe, or say something. I love to hear from you. All right, have a good day. Bye.